Okay. We are discussing with the last principles of professional behavior. I think you can see my screen in the page of professional behavior. Am I right? Professional behavior. That's principles say the professional
Recording
should
in
be
progress.
comply with relevant laws and regulations. That means that themselves they can't promote their profession. As a professional accountants, they can't promote their profession. Profession as per the principles mentioned that the professional behavior he or she should maintain. The professional accountant should be honest and truthful and should not these things make in aggregated claims for the service they are able to offer, the qualifications they possess, or experience they have gained. When the persons provide these services to the other party, they should maintain their professional behavior. They can't do any aggregated claims on behalf of he or the company of the persons, and the qualifications they can't possess and experience they have gained. They should follow. As a professional, they should maintain their behavior. They comply with their behavior. Like හැසිරීම කෙරෙහි අවධානය යොමු කරන්න ඕනේ. Professional කෙනෙක් විදියට අදාළ laws and regulations වලට comply වෙන්න ඕනේ. These things provide guidance provide under these principles that make this gain or unsubstantiated compulsions to work of others. Then the principles provide guidelines for the professionals to act their best in the behavior. Then there is a activity I have addressed here, the small case study. By reading this case study, you can identify the 5 ethics principles relevant to the NIMAL. How can NIMAL apply 5 ethics principles in solving this situation? Up to now, we have studied 5 principles: integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior. We have studied. By considering these principles, you should address how can NIMAL apply these principles resolving the situations of the organization? Just read what is the case. NIMAL work as a purchasing officer in a company. One of the company's supplier offer him an expensive gift and invite him to luxury hotel for a weekend stay. The NIMAL is the purchasing officer in a company. One of the company's supplier offered him an expensive gift and invited him to luxury hotel for weekend stay. A few days later, the supplier asked NIMAL to approve a larger order. The approach or the reason behind this gift is a special thing. The few days later, the supplier asked NIMAL to approve a larger order, even though another supplier has offered better quality at a lower price. There's a special invitations. The few days later, the supplier asked NIMAL to approve a larger order, even though another supplier has offers better quality at a lower price. NIMAL knows that accepting the gift may influence his decision, but he also feels pressure because the supplier is an old friend. The supplier is an old friend, and he has he also feels pressure from him because he's an old friend. At the same time, NIMAL's manager informally tell him to maintain good relationship with the supplier and not create problems. NIMAL is unsure what to do. Up to now, we have studied 5 principles. So align with these principles, how we can resolve this situation. There is a problem behind that case. That's the problem. One of the major customer invite to Nimal to the expensive gift, and by providing these kind of thing, the customer request Nimal to approve the larger order without considering other suppliers' orders, quality orders at a lower price. It's a problem behind that, and he has the pressure arising from that situation, and because the customer is the older friend, it's a problem, and the manager also informally tell they should maintain with the good relationship with the customers. If the invest is not accept, the customer may be lost. Therefore, they should think about all situations behind that case. Then, by using the comply with the code of ethics, the 5 fundamental principles, how we can resolve this answer, resolve this situation, case, what we can do. Do you have any suggestions? I don't know for the other classes whether you are speak or not, because this is the first time for my auditing lecture for you. කොහොමද අනිත් ක්ලාස් වල කට්ටිය කතා කරනවද නැත්නම් lecture කියෝගෙන යනවා ඔයාලත් ලැප් එක ඔන් කරන් ඉන්නවා එහෙම එකක්ද වෙන්නේ? answers දෙනවද? What's your solution for this situation? In an exam, maybe this kind of question can be tested. There is a small cases. You want to give your recommendations and the solution for the questions by using align with the fundamental principles. How we can resolve this answer? How we can do? Okay, I will tell you the answer as well, but you want to remember. Then the principles of integrity. What is the principles of integrity? What is the information include in the integrity? The integrity means that explain the person, the professional person should be honest, truthful, and straightforward. අවංක වෙන්න ඕන. එතකොට how we can give our solution to resolve? Yes, objectivity align with that. He should not accept any gift from his client because it's violated the objectivity of the principles. Then how integrity? How the situation impact to the integrity? This is also we can align with the integrity as well. The Nimal should not accept the gift or favor of the supplier unfairly. Why? He must make a purchasing decision honestly and in the best interest of the company. Right. He must make a purchasing decision honestly. Honestly means it's included in the integrity part. The principle of integrity mentioned that the professional person should be honest and trustful and straightforward. Then the Nimal should not accept the gift or favor for the suppliers unfairly by accepting that kind of package or any gift. He should make a purchasing decisions honestly aligned with the company's policies. Then how it is impacted to the objectivity? The objectivity, what are the dimension and the components included in the objectivity? The objectivity addressed the professional person should act without bias, conflict of interest, and the decision should be taken fairly, not undue influence for the others, the objectivity. Considering about these elements or the dimensions under objectivity, we can say the Nimal must remain in impression. He should evaluate suppliers based on price, quality, and company policy, not personal relationship or objectivity. He should not he should act without bias. That means he should not accept the gift or the relationship that are arising with the suppliers and should align with the company policies, quality of the products and the prices. They should evaluate suppliers based on prices. They should align with the objectivity as well. Then how the Nimal can align with the professional competence and UKR? He should use the professional knowledge, skills, and according to the professional standard as well. How the Nimal can address this situation by using professional competence and UKR? By using skills and the knowledge, professional knowledge, the Nimal can compare. Nimal can compare the suppliers, and he can choose the one of the suppliers provide the best services and best good value and the quality goods for the company. He or she can use their knowledge and the skills to resolve this situation. And he must follow procurement procedures and act with the due care. He should align with competence and due care and the skills and the knowledge he can use to resolve this situation. And confidentiality, how the confidentiality is enrolled for this resolve this situation. Confidentiality means the professional should not disclose the confidential information to the third party. You have learned, as per the principles of confidentiality, the Nimal should protect and should not disclose the company information and not misuse the informations. So the Nimal should keep company purchasing details confidentially and should not give unfair advantage to any supplier through private information. So the confidential information like the purchasing details should not declare or disclose to the another party, private sector. So the private information purposes. We should align with the confidentiality ethics, confidentiality principles, and should not disclose the internal informations to the other party as well. The last one, the professional behavior, how Nimal can act as a professional. The behavior how should do. Acting in a way that protects the reputation of professional and organization. The reputation of the professional as well as the organizations. The professional of the NIMAL should act and behave the professionally. Then what can do for the NIMAL? The NIMAL should behave professionally by refusing inappropriate benefit, reporting the issue if necessary. Then that means the luxury hotel for weekend stay and the expensive gifts he or she should not accept. The NIMAL should not accept these things. And he should inform and reported issues for the necessary persons or the parties and following company rules and ethic standard. If there is any problem, they can immediately inform to the top level managers or the board of directors, and if there is no any solutions can received, he can inform to the external auditors, internal auditors as well. Then this is a professional behavior. He should act as a professional person, not with align with any bias or conflict of interest. He should maintain his knowledge and his skills as per the professional competence and due care. These are the things you should know to address this kind of situation. In future, you maybe become a professional chartered accountant or the audit manager. Then you should follow this kind of thing. You should align with these principles to resolve this problem. The clients address you, call you, ask some advices what we can do. Then you want to give the comments based on the code of ethics. We can't do kind of things. Therefore, you should align with these kind of fundamental principles. That's why we are learning these things. එකයි අපි මේ වගේ දේවල් ඉගෙන ගන්න. ගන්න හේතුව තමයි දැන් code of ethics කියන විදිහට principles පහක් තියෙනවා. ඒ පහ අපි අනුගමනය කරන්න ඕන. ඒ පහ පිළිපදින්න ඕන professional කෙනෙක් විදිහට. දැන් ඔයාලා accountants කෙනෙක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Professional, any kind of professional job, he or she should be aligned with these principles when provide the services and give the comments for the others. Okay. Next, there are some possible threats to comply with the code of ethics. Why the code of ethics should use? There are threats. තර්ජන තියෙනවා. සමහර තර්ජන තියෙන මෙන්න මේ වගේ අවස්ථාවක code of ethics අපි අනුගමනය කරන්න ඕන. What are the possible situations can that you want to use the code of ethics? The one you can see the breach of confidentiality, disclosing information provided by the client to persons other than the client without his or her consent, without their responsibility, without their consents, approval, the informations disclosed to the another party or the third party. In the organizations, in public or private, either public or private sector organization, these kind of situations can happen. Then the code of ethics restricts this kind of situations by confidentiality principles. Therefore, they should align with these principles and submit reports not made by him. These are threats. Submit a report or financial statement not made by him as made by him or his firm. It's a fake documents. It's a misused documents can submit it. It's not the code of ethics. It's not ethics. එක ආචාර ධර්මානුකූලව නැහැ. ඒ වගේ තර්ජන තියෙන්න පුළුවන්. වැරදි දේවල් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Express of opinion based on the substantial interest. Express his opinion on financial statement of the business offer in which he has a substantial interest. we are doing the audit, but the opinion at the ultimately at the end of the audit report, the auditor express the opinion, but it's not aligned with the audit procedure. The material there is any material misstatements in the financial statements, if there are any omissions or the error, fraud, but they have not addressed or mentioned these kind of things. He give the opinion as his own opinion, substantial interest, not a correct one. So kind of threats can happen. The failure to disclose a necessary fact known to him in the financial statement, without which a financial statement would be misleading. Now, the fail to disclose the required factors of the financial statement. The financial statement, when provide the financial statement, the disclosures requirement is not fulfilled, not aligned with the disclosures, necessary disclosures information. It's the issue. Failure to disclose the required financial information and the financial disclosures. Then failure to report misstatements. Failure to report to material in misstatement in the financial statement known to him which is under his professional capacity. When doing the audit, the auditor, when doing the audit, he identifies some material misstatements, but not address these misstatements in their financial audit report. It's a threats. Is not aligned with the code of ethics. Failure to report misstatement, possible threats to comply with. Then if there is any misstatements in the financial statements we identify, the person should address these things to the audit report, or the first we can address to the management and resolve the misstatements, and if there is any unresolved misstatements, we should address these in the financial audit report. ඔයාලා දැන් audit firms වලට ගිහිල්ලා audit කරනවනේ. එතකොට audit කරද්දී ඔයාලා ඔයගේ misstatements තියෙනවා. audit report එක හදද්දී දැනගන්න ඕනේ මේ වගේ misstatements තිබ්බොත් first thing you can discuss with the audit manager, and after that audit manager can, or the supervisor can discuss with the company manager, finance manager, or accountant, resolve this situation. If there is any kind of unresolved situation, you should address these misstatements in the financial in the audit report. Then failure to report misstatement is the another threat. If not report this kind of thing, it's a threat. Then negligence and no due diligence. Does not exercise due diligence or is grossly neglect. And failure to obtain information required. Failure to obtain sufficient information needed for his expressions of his opinion. The required information is not taken, not obtained. That's the issue. Can breach the code of ethics. It's a threats that can violate the code of ethics of the organization. Then what are the another thing? Failure to report departure from procedure. Failure to report any material departure from the general procedure of audit in the current circumstance. And also another threats you can see: misappropriations of money, agents rule and guidelines, and under the acts and council, the sharing of confidential informations. The confidential information sharing means that when we share the confidential information, it's violated the confidentiality of the code of ethics. So threats, including false information. So false information is not aligned with the honesty, the integrity, not objectivity. Then it's a threats. And embezzles money, misappropriation money received in professional capacity. Likewise, you can see the possible situations can happen in the organizations as a threats that which are impacted to the code of ethics, the fundamental principles to the organization for the professional. Therefore, we should align with the fundamental principles and address this kind of situation. Should address this kind of situation. Then next. Then we should discuss the how to use the code. Then first we discuss the purpose of the code and the structure as well as the fundamental principle. Now we have to discuss how to use the code. How we can use. How to use the code. The code required professional accountants to comply with the fundamental principle of ethics. The code also required them to apply the conceptual framework to identify, evaluate, address threats to comply with the fundamental principle. Now, code required professional accountant to comply with the fundamental principles. That means we learn 5 principles. To align with these principles, the code provide the path and conceptual framework to identify, evaluate, and address the threats. Whatever the threats we identify in the organizations, the codes and the conceptual framework provide the guideline. And the code also, therefore, the code is required. And also, when threats are not at acceptable level, the conceptual framework requires the accountant to address those threats. Applying safeguards is one way that threats might be addressed. The threats are not in acceptable level. If there is any threats in the organization, like previously we study, we learn, but those are not in the acceptable level. That means the conceptual framework required the accountant to address those threats. At that situations, the safeguards is one of the way to mitigate, to address these kind of threats. Then what are the safeguards? The safeguards are the actions, the individually or combinations that the accountant take in the effectively reduce threats to the acceptable level. By using safeguards, the accountants, so accounts and the individually or combinationally can reduce these threats for the acceptable level. Acceptable level එකක නැත්තම් threats එක conceptual framework එක හරහා අපිට safeguard ආරක්ෂක විධාන කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඒක එතකොට reduce කරගන්න පුළුවන් acceptable level එකට ඒ ප්‍රශ්න ටික. In addition, the code required professional accountant to be independent when performing audit, review, and other assurance engagement. The code required professional accountant to be independent when performing audit, review, and other assurance engagement. Then next one is the pressure. Then pressure, how the pressure is impacted, the influence to reach the fundamental principle, pressure. The professional accountant shall not allow pressure from others to result in breach of compliance with the fundamental principle. The professional accountant, the accountant should not allow the pressure from others. අනෙත් කට්ටියගේ pressure එක එයා අරගන්න බෑ. Fundamental principle එකක් breach වුණා කියලා. And place pressure on others that the accountant knows or has reasons to believe would result in the other individual breaching the fundamental principle. අනිත් කෙනෙක් compliance එකක් breach කරා කියලා fundamental principle එකක් breach කරා කියලා කැඩුවා කියලා professional accountants pressure වෙන්නත් බෑ ඉඩ දෙන්නත් බෑ එයාගේ pressure එක වෙන කෙනෙක් මත යොදවන්නත් බෑ. The pressure to breach the fundamental principle, the allow pressure from others shall not allow pressure from others as well as shall not place pressure on others. අනෙක් කෙනෙක්ගේ pressure එකක් එයා allow කරගන්නත් බෑ. එයාට තියෙන pressure එකක් අනෙක් කෙනෙක්ට දෙන්නත් බෑ. When undertaking professional activity, pressure might be explicit or implicit and might come from within the employing organization, for example, from colleges or supervisors, superiors, the senior in your audit firm, the senior auditor, senior audit supervisor always tell you, please do your work as soon as possible. Please report your work status within the day, but you are not, you have not done this work, but the supervisor requests to submit your work. It's a pressure. It's a colleges and the superior persons in the supervisor. It's a pressure. As a result of that, you do the wrong thing. එහෙම වෙන්න පුළුවන් දැන් ඔයාලා කම්පැනි එකේ වැඩ කර කර ඉදී ඔඩිට් එකේ යනවා ඔඩිට් එකේ ඔයාලට රෙවෙන්යු තියෙනවා රෙවෙන්යු වලට අදාළ රෙවෙන්යු ප්‍රොසීඩියර් එකට කැප්ෂන් එකට අදාළ you have to do the procedure for the revenue vouching and cut off checking and kind of thing you have to do. But the audit supervisor asks you to give your current status and you should complete your working and submit today. But you have not yet completed those things. But the pressure is coming from the supervisor. Then what you have to do? You do the wrong thing. Cut off එක කරනවා check කරන්නේ invoices. Vouching කරනවා vouching not checking the vouching numbers or vouching values, only take the ledger from the customer and put the whole amount in your working and find the one attachment and attach if needed and submit the working, but you are not performing the audit procedure well correctly. Then you breach the fundamental principles. The reason behind is a audit supervisor pressure. එහෙම නේද? ඒකට audit supervisor pressure කරන නිසා තමයි ඔයාලා වැරදි එක කරේ. ඒකට pressure කියන එක fundamental principle එකක් breach වෙන්න හේතුවක් වෙනවා. An external individual or organization such as vendor, customer or lender. As a result of the pressure coming from the vendors, customers or lenders, the external parties, to do the wrong thing. You do the misstatements. Then internal or external targets and expectation. As a result of internal target, you should increase your annual profit 5% within the year. As a result of you not properly record your annual expenses, material, misappropriately manipulate the financial figures. එහෙම කරන්න පුළුවන්. It's a pressure. Management, the finance division say you should increase your annual target as a seller, sale executive. You should increase your annual sales targets 5% within the year. You can do the wrong thing to achieve this level. It's a pressure. Okay, situations are fundamental principles can reach. Then the example of pressure that might result in threats. What are the examples? And you can see here the examples. Some examples. The pressure related to conflict of interest. Pressure from family members bidding to act as a vendor to the professional accountants, employing organization to select family member over another prospective vendors. And also you can see the pressure to influence the preparations or presentation of information. The pressure can come when prepare the financial statements or the informations. How? Pressure to report misleading financial results to meet investors, analysts or lender expectation. To fulfill the expectations of the investors, analysts and lenders, the company, the finance officer can do the misleading, can prepare the misleading financial, can give the misleading financial results for them to achieve expectations. And pressure from colleges to misstate income, expenditure or rates of returns to buyers decision making on capital project and acquisition. The pressure coming from the colleges to do the misstatement, and pressure from superiors to approve or process expenditure that are not legitimate business expenses. Like this way, the pressure can come in the as a test. The pressure to act without sufficient expertise or due care. Pressure from superiors to inappropriately reduce the extension of work performance. And pressure from superiors to perform a task without sufficient skills or training or within unrealistic deadline. ඔයාලට වෙනව නේද? දැන් ඩෙඩ්ලයින් ලඟ වෙච්ච ගමන් ඕක කරලා දාන්න කියලා ඕක කොහොම හරි කරලා දාන්න හරි කියලා කියනවා. But you have not sufficient the enough knowledge and the skills to do that kind of task. Working තියෙනවා last year working එක දිහා බලාගෙන this year working එක කරන්න කියනවා. But you have not sufficient skills or the enough knowledge. It's a pressure. As a result of pressure, you can do the wrong thing. So misstatements can happen. That's why the codes of ethics are developed to mitigate this kind of situation and to address this kind of situations that the professional accountants or the professional should align with these things. Then further, the example for pressure that might result in threats, the pressure related to financial interest. Pressure from superior college or other, for example, those who might benefit from participation in compensations or incentive arrangement to manipulate performance indicators are to obtain the higher professional compensation and the more incentives arrangement. The superiors or the supervisor, the senior persons can tell you to do this kind of manipulation of the financial indicators. So at the වෙනස් කරන්න කියලා. revenue තියෙනවා නම් 1 million, they inform you to manipulate this amount. Pressure is coming. The results why the pressure is coming is to obtain the more compensation and higher incentive arrangements. So pressure related to financial interest. Then the pressure related to non-compliance with law and regulations. Pressure to structure transaction to avoid tax. Factors that are relevant in evaluating level of tax created by pressure include in the intent of individual who is existing the pressure and the nature and extent of the pressure. And the applications of law, regulation, and professional standard to be circumstances. And the cultural and leadership of employee organization. These are the factors. These are the factors. Now we identify some kind of traits in organization that can be influenced to the pressure. Then these are the factors we can identify: intent of individuals, and the cultural and the leadership. As a supervisor is a leader, they pressure you to do kind of tests. Then policies and procedures. The policies is a draft and the strong. It's not aligned with the standards. Then the tests can happen. As a result, the code of ethics or the principles can violate. These are factors that are relevant to evaluating the level of threats. Considering these things, we can evaluate the threats are how much impact to the violation of code of ethics or fundamental principles. Okay, next we can discuss the actions to eliminate the threats created by pressure. Then what we can do to eliminate the threats created by pressure. Pressure එක නිසා අපිට ඇතිවන තර්ජන statements එතකොට වැරදි උතුරු සපයන්න දෙන ඒවා කොහොම eliminates this pressure. How we can do an action that might eliminate threats created by the pressure is professional accountants required for restructure of or segregation of certain responsibility duties. As the professional accountants or the professional party, they can do restructure their procedure and also segregate the duties. Like duties segregate කරන්න පුළුවන්. එකම duty එක duty කීපයක් එකට කරන්න දෙන්න duty ටික බෙදලා දාන්න. Segregate the duties and the responsibilities. Then doing this kind of thing, they can eliminate and reduce the threats arising from pressure. For the documentation the factor, then how can document this kind of thing? The professional accountant is encouraged to document the factors arising for the pressure and communicate and parties with whom these matter were discussed. You should communicate and with the parties. You should discuss with these matters, the factors, and the causes of action considered. What are the avoid or eliminate these threats and how the matter was addressed. By discussing these kind of things, the first identify the factors and communicate with the relevant required parties and implement the action plan and considering these all things, you can address this matter as a documentation. Okay. Up to now, we have discussed the purpose of the code of ethics and the fundamental principles and the threats that are coming from the pressure and the mitigation action to avoid this kind of pressure. Then now we have to discuss the another part of the topic, the code of ethics, to identify the threats. The commonly there are some threats we identify in the organization, but as per the code of ethics provided by the Sri Lanka, we can identify there are 5 threats. What are the threats that we can identify? The professional accountant shall identify threats to comply with the fundamental principles. To comply with the fundamental principles, the professional accountant shall identify the threats. What are the threats? There are 5 threats: self-interest, self-review, advocacy, familiarity, and intimidation. What is the self-interest? What's the self-interest? The self-interest is the test that financial or other interest will inappropriately influence your judgment or behavior. It's a financial or other interest. It may be a financial, it's not a financial anyway. It might be impacted. It can impact to your final answer or the final judgment or the behavior of in your profession. If you are the auditor, if there is any financial or non-financial interest behind your final judgment or the opinion, this kind of threats we can say these are the self-interest threats. Then the self-review. What's the self-review threats? The threats that you will not properly evaluate the results of previous judgment made or services performed by you or someone else within the organization when performing a judgment as part of providing the current service. When you are providing the current services, you should not properly evaluate the previous judgment. when you provide the current services, you should properly evaluate the results of the previous judgment that you have made. If not, if there is any wrong thing, correction in this current service. කියන්නේ කලින් මොකක් හරි වාදුණු judgment එකක වැරද්දක් වෙලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒ වැරද්ද currently current service එක දෙන අවස්ථාවේදී ඔයා ඒක හරි ගස්සන්න ඕන. If there is any mistake happened in the previous judgment made by you or the services performed by you, when performing the judgment as part of providing the current services, immediately you should do the address for the previous judgment. If not, it's a self-review test. එහෙම කරේ නැත්නම් ඒක self-review test එකක්. And advocacy. What's advocacy? The test that you will promote a position to the point that you objectively is compromised. The test that you promote a position. The current position you can promote වෙන්න කියලා, or you can do the tests. If you are the audit manager, if you are become an audit senior manager, then you can do the tests. Then kind of tests we can call advocacy tests. Usually you are employer to the point that you objectively is compromised. And next we can discuss the familiarity, the test that due to a long, close relationship with someone, you will be too sympathetic to the person's interest or to accepting of their works. If there is any relationship, like you are the CEO of the organization, you are supposed is also the investor or the major shareholder of the company. Then there is a relationship, close relationship between you and your spouse. Your spouse. Suppose your spouse. Then this is a familiarity traits can happen. Then this kind of traits can happen. Therefore, you should align with these traits and do the needful as per the code of ethics addressed by the Sri Lanka. You should align. And also, when prepare the financial statement, you can you remember as per the related party transaction standard, you should disclose the relationship, key management person relationship, and the other information as per the standards, the related party standard. And you will be able to sympathetic to the person's interest or to accepting their work. And finally, we can identify the traits, the intimidation traits. What's the intimidation traits? The traits that you will be deterred from action objectively because of actual or perceived pressure, including attempt to exercise undue influence over you. What is this kind of traits? The traits that you will be deterred from acting objectively because of actual or perceived pressure. පාට බලපෑම් කරනවා මේ දේ කරන්න තර්ජනය කරනවා. You should do this kind of thing, otherwise you have to leave from our organization. You are fired. Intimidation. So undue influence over you. බලපෑම් කරනවා. It's a pressure. It's over pressure. As a result of this, the intimidation tests can happen in the organization. So violate the fundamental principles. Therefore, you should not do this kind of thing. Then how we can evaluate these kind of traits? When the professional accountant identify your traits to comply with the fundamental principles As a professional accountant, first you identify the threats that you should comply with the fundamental principle. An accountant shall evaluate whether such a threat is at acceptable level. First, you want to identify whether this is a threat or not, whether this can happen for our image, then there is any impact to our image, and you want to evaluate. Once you evaluate, you want to consider the such a threat is at an acceptable level. The acceptable level is a level at which professional accountant using a reasonable and informed third-party test would likely conclude that the accountant complied with the fundamental principle. Factors relevant in evaluating the level of threat. Now, how we can evaluate the level of threat? When we evaluate the level of threats, we can use corporate governance and requirements. We can align with the corporate governance and the requirements of the organization and the educational training and experience requirement for the professions. When we consider the evaluating the level of threats, we should comply with the corporate governance and also educational training and experience requirement for the professions. An effective compliance system which enables the professional accountant and the general public to attention to unethical behavior. Effective compliance systems which enable the professional accountant and the general public to attention to unethical behavior. Then you should align with the effective compliance systems when you evaluate the level of threat. And explicitly state due to report breach of ethic requirements. And also professional or regulatory monitoring and disciplinary procedures you should follow. These are the factors you should follow, and you should align with these things to when you evaluate the level of threats. And once you evaluate the level of threats, you can decide whether these threats are acceptable level or not. And based on that, you can do the needful to mitigate these kind of threats. දැන් මොකද්ද මෙන්න මේ කියන factors දිහා බලලා ඔයාලට මේ threats එක කොච්චර දුරට ඔයාලට බලපානවද කියන එක හඳුනා ගන්න පුළුවන්. කම්පැනි තියෙන corporate governance requirements එක බලන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයාගේ education training and experience එක ඔයාලට මේක evaluate කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයා ඉගෙන ගන්න තියෙන කෙනෙක් නම් ඔයා ඉගෙන ගත්ත දේවල් අනුව මේක අපිට test එකක්. ඒ විදිහට you can evaluate. And finally, you can decide whether this is a acceptable level test or not. If it is a acceptable level, you can do the needful solution, needful thing to mitigate these threats. Then how we can address the threats? First, we identify the level of threats and you should address how we can do. If the professional accountant determined the identified threats to compliance with the fundamental principles are not an acceptable level. It's not an acceptable level. Acceptable level එකේ නම් අපිට accept කරගන්න පුළුවන්. But it's not an acceptable level. The accountant shall address these threats by eliminating them or reducing them to an acceptable level. We should reduce or eliminate these threats to the acceptable level. The accountant shall do so by eliminating the circumstance, including interest or relationship that are creating a threat. If there is any interest mean conflict of interest. ඔයාට මම අවුරුද්දට මෙච්චරක් දෙන්නම් ඔයා මට මේ දේ කරලා දෙන්න. මේ වගේ තියෙන it's a conflict of interest. පගාව දෙනවා. Then relationship. It's not a legal relationship. It's not a proper relationship. It's not comply with the accounting standards and the company policies. The relationship are not in an acceptable level. These kind of situations that threats can create. Therefore, this kind of situation you should eliminate. ඒවා නවත්ත ගන්නවා. The applied safeguard were available and capable of being applied. You should apply the safeguard where required to reduce the threats to acceptable level. Safeguards you can apply. And the declining or ending of specific professional activities. Declining or ending the specific professional activities. Hereby you can address the threats and eliminate them or reduce them to the acceptable level. Okay. Here we can discuss some safeguards to mitigate or reduce the previously discussed threats. We have discussed 5 threats: self-interest, self-review, advocacy, familiarity, and intimidation. Then how we can use the safeguard to mitigate or overcome or reduce these kind of threats. Here you can see some examples, the safeguards. What are the examples? The actions that might be safeguards that threats. Example, the self-interest to overcome or reduce or mitigate the self-interest threats, what we can do. Here you can see assigning sufficient engagement personnel with the necessary competence. Assigning sufficient engagement personnel with the necessary competence. And also agreeing on realistic time frame for the perform of the engagement. When we develop the audit engagement, when we do the audit engagement with the, when we agree with the, when we do the agreement, when we do the agreement with the engagement for the PLC company or the another company, private company, the agreements period, the audit period should, the engagement period should fair, realistic. අපිට time එක හරියට තියෙන්න ඕනේ. If not, otherwise the self interest can happen. With the client's permissions, obtaining information for the existing or producer's accountant, and obtaining information from other sources such as through inquiry of third parties or background investigations. To address the stress, we can do this kind of safeguards. Obtain the information from the other source such as through inquiry or third parties or background investigation. If there is any self-interest related threats, we can do this kind of thing. We can do the inquiry of the senior person of the organization, and also we can call the third party information, third party confirmations as well, to whether check whether there is any self-interest behind the organizations in the financial activities, and adjusting the level of fees or the scope of the engagement. We can do this kind of thing. Then self-review. Then what are the things we can do as a safeguard to mitigate the self-review threats? What kind of thing we can do? Using different personnel to perform the engagement and to review the work performed. Self-review. To overcome the self-review threats, we can use the different persons. Not only the assigned persons, other than that, we can use the can enroll for the engagement. Then we can overcome the self-review threats. And arranging for the appropriate reviewers who was not involved in preparing the organization work. The assigned person, other than the assigned persons, we can suggest, we can appoint the another reviewers to review the financial statements, to check the reports. Hereby we can mitigate, we can reduce the self-review threats as well. And also another way, consulting an independent third party, such as another professional accountants are. We are the professional accountants, KPMG. We are giving our services for the PLC company, but in the PLC company, we can identify, we can see there are working with the PLC company in the KPMG. They have the professionals are not aligned with the code of ethics. They are self-review. They act under self-review traits. As a result, the company can request for the another firm like EY to involve with this situation, and they can ask their consultations to overcome this kind of thing. Self-review. In the company perspective also, we can say like this: the company, the organization, financial officers are not in align with the code of ethics. They are violate the ethics as a threats of self review. Therefore, we can address to the another party to involve for this and give their feedback, consulting an independent third party such as another professional accountant. Is a safeguard to overcome the self-review. And also the advocacy. Then what are the action we can do to overcome the advocacy? Using separate terms for advocacy, advisory services and assurance services. Using separate teams, not the terms. Using separate teams for advisory services and assurance services. අපිට දැනට ඉන්න සර්විස් ටීම් එකට අමතරව ඇඩ්වයිසරි ටීම් එකට අමතරව වෙන ටීම් එකක් අපිට අරගන්න පුළුවන්. And having independent review of judgments and conclusions reach. Independent review of judgment and conclusion reach. And not acting as a promoter or representative of the client where objectivity may be impaired. The persons of the organization, the accountant, should not act as a promoter or representative of the client. Hereby, the objectivity can be impaired or violate. Then they should not do kind of thing. Then we can protect the advocacy. We can protect the code of ethics and mitigate the advocacy threat. And discussing the issues with those charged with governance. Can discuss with the issues arising from the advocacy threats, is the safeguards with those charged with governance. And the familiarity, how we can address these issues, these threats, what we can do. The one thing is rotating senior personnel on the engagement. To overcome the familiarity threats, we can do the rotate senior persons over the engagement. In the audit manager of your audit is one of the friend of the your audited organization. This is a familiarity threats. ඔයාගේ audit එකේ audit manager audit කරන company එකේ ඉන්න කෙනෙක්ගේ family member කෙනෙක්. If not, there is a close relationship. Then the familiarity threats can happen. Then what we can do is rotating senior personnel on engagement. We can rotate. And assigning additional reviewers who are not closely connected to the client. Other than the current person's reviewer, another additional reviewers can act. Then can mitigate or reduce the familiarity threat. එතකොට එක්කෙනෙක් මත bias වෙන්නේ නැහැ, depend වෙන්නේ නැහැ the final judgment. It's not depend on the final judgment on the one party because the additional reviewers are there. And having the work reviewer by an independent professional accountant. Independent professional accountants can enroll. The professional accountants align with the code of ethics. They should follow. Therefore, the familiarity test can mitigate and changing the composition of the engagement. Engagement team composition. ඒකේ තියෙන view way. View way means if there is any one senior manager, if there is any supervisor and the five junior members, the composition you can change. Only two supervisors and two senior two supervisors, two senior, junior auditors, and likewise you can change the composition of the engagement team. Hereby you can address the familiarity test and mitigate the familiarity test, and also reducing the reliance on the individual who has had a long association with the client. If there is any long association with the client, the persons, you can reduce the reliance. And also the finally we can discuss the for the intention what we can do the discussing matter with the higher level of management or those charged with governance. Hereby we can mitigate or reduce the intimidation threat. We can discuss whatever the problem we are having, what is the pressure coming from the seniors managers or the party. We can inform, we can tell them our problems. Hereby we can overcome the intimidation test and consulting with the independent third party or professional body. I told earlier we can give the ideas and we can consult with the third party like external auditors and the CA Sri Lanka. We can consult with them and documenting all factors, communications and decision carefully. Now, considering these things, we can document these things carefully, then we can eliminate and mitigate intimidation threats arising of the organization. Okay. Up to now, we discussed code of ethics and the safeguards and the threats and the pressure how can impact to the can impact to the threats of the organization. Likewise, we are discuss more information relevant to the code of ethics and practices. Also, I have mentioned the link and also finally we have to discuss the general documentation of independence of audit and review engagement. When safeguards are applied to the address the threats, here we previously discussed some safeguards that we can apply to address the threats. The firm shall document the nature of the threats and the safeguard in place or applied. What are the threats that you are identifying in the organization? The align with these threats, whatever the safeguard you apply or in place, you should document these things. It's a general documentation of independence of the audit and review engagement. When the threats required significant analysis and the firm concluded that the threats was already at an acceptable level, the firm shall document the nature of the threats and the rationale for the conclusion. If it is threats are in acceptable level, the firm shall document the nature. What's the nature of the threats and the rationale for the conclusion? These kind of things should document. If not the acceptable level, the company should do the safeguard, the action plan, to mitigate the this kind of threats up to the acceptable level. That's why we discussed the safeguard, whatever the safeguard that we can do to mitigate the threats arising from the organization when the day-to-day business of the organization. Okay. Up to now, we discussed about the many informations regarding to the code of ethics and the threats as a professional accountant should follow and align with this code of ethics when they are providing their services to the other parties. In future, you you become a qualified chartered accountant, then you should align with these kind of things, and you should remember these things, and you should align with these things. Uh, Therefore, you want to remember these informations and the code of ethics and the traits and align with this. And finally, I have addressed here, I have include here the case study questions which is relevant to the ethics traits and code of ethics, ethical traits and code of ethics. You can see here the small case. At the end, you can see the requirements, the discussion, the ethical issue involved by the applying the 5 fundamental principles of code of ethics that we have learned at the beginning, the like objectivity, integrity, professional behavior, professional competence and due care. Likewise, we study 5 principles and the major ethical traits like self-interest, self-review, advocacy. Likewise, we studied 5 traits and recommended appropriate safeguards and professional action. Then you want to identify the fundamental principles of code of ethics and also major traits arising from this case, and also the what are the appropriate safeguard and the financial action that you can implement to overcome these ethics that should taken to address this situation. Then you want to read this case and you should address required safeguard for these issues. Then what is the case? The state, the professional accountant working as a financial manager of a larger listed company is responsible for preparing the year-ended financial statements. There is a financial manager in the larger company. His responsibility is preparing the financial statements, year-ended financial statement. Assisting with the major bank loan application, participating in supplier selection, and communicating with potential investors. What are the duties he is performing? Assisting with the major bank loan application. He assists for the bank loan and participating in supplier selection. When select the suppliers, he is the person is participate and communicating with the potential investors. The required informations are communicating to the potential investors of the organization during this period. Several ethical concerns arise. The finance manager is entitled to perform bonus based on reportable profit and also on shares in the company. Senior management suggests delaying certain expenses so that profit appears higher for the year. The finance manager is entitled to perform a bonus based on the reportable profit and also on shares in the company. But the senior manager suggests delaying certain expenses so that profit appears higher for the year. Expenses delay කරපුවාම profit එක වැඩි කරගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා කියනවා. Finance manager ඉන්නවලු එයා performance bonus කෙරෙහි තමයි අවධානය යොමු කරන්නේ. Profit එක වැඩි කරගන්න. එතකොට senior manager කියනවලු යෝජනා කරනවලු expenses අඩු කරගත්තොත් delay කරගත්තොත් අපිට profit එක වැඩි කරගන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. In addition, the finance manager is asked to review an inventory valuation schedule that was personally prepared earlier in the year without any independent review. What's the traits? The first trait is self-interest traits, the bonus case. And the delay in certain expenses. And the second one is a self-review case traits without any independent review. The previous year, the valuation that was personally prepared earlier in year without any independent review. Management also instructs that only favorable financial information should be presented to the bank and potential investors. Not all informations, only the favorable financial information only should be presented to the bank. Not provide correct information to the bank and potential investors. not the integrity and not objectivity is violated. While important matters such as weak cash flow, slow moving inventory, and pending legal dispute should not be emphasized. Cash flow weaknesses and slow moving inventories and the pending legal disputes should not be emphasized. ඒවා අවධානය කරන්නේ පෙන්නන්නේ අංගනෝ. At the same time, one of the supplier being considered for a major contract is owned by the close family friend of the finance manager, and there is a pressure to support that supplier. It's a traits. The close family members there is a traits. That's a familiarity. Familiarity traits is there. When the finance manager raise concerns, senior manager imply that the future promotions and job security may be affected by any lack of cooperation. Is a that's also traits. That's a traits. It's a intimidation. Job security may be affected by any lack of cooperation. Security එක job security එකට further a potential about the financial position before the annual report is officially released. What is that? So objectivity. They should not disclose the it's not objectivity, it's a confidentiality. The confidential information should not disclose for the third party without any approval, without any obligation. Then, considering this case, you can identify the 5 fundamental principles where the situation can impact to the fundamental principles and the ethical traits that can happen in the company, and identifying these fundamental principles as well as ethical traits, you can address the relevance. You can recommend the appropriate safeguards and professional actions that you can mitigate or overcome these kind of situation. Then this is the end of the today sessions. Then you can do this at your home. Then throughout this session we study the professional things. Professional things means the fundamental principles and the traits and the all things when we are the professional, how we can act with others, what are the things we should follow, and how we can do our thing as a professional manner, how we should a professional person. Likewise, we studies more things which are relevant to the professional accountants, mainly accountants. Then you should align with these things and you should remember these things because these things can be tested in your exam as well. This kind of question can ask a small case and identify the code of ethics and identify the ethical traits and suggest the relevant safeguards. I think provide the recorded as well because I'm not sure because I had some connection issues, but because I'm not sure whether I can download this one. මම ෆෝන් එකේ ලොග් වෙලා ඉන්නේ මට ෂුවර් කරන්න බෑ මේක රෙකෝඩ් එක අරගන්න පුළුවන් වේද කියලා. ලැප් එකෙන් ගත්ත පාර්ට් එක නම් මම රෙකෝඩ් කරගත්තා. මේකත් රෙකෝඩින් දැම්මා but not sure whether it is okay or not. බලමු අනිත් lectures ලක practices එක කොහමද? Okay with to upload the lecture record I can upload but otherwise I can't do nothing. Okay. Thus your participation is required. අහගෙන හරි ඉන්න lecture එකට එන්න ඕනනේ. I know it's difficult. you are the third year students and working with the internship. But the same situation we have faced in uh, 5 years before. අපිත් ඒ දවස්වල එහෙම තමයි. දැන් අපිත් පාස් අවුට් උනේ මෙහෙම තමයි. මමත් පාස් අවුට් උනේ කියලා නියම තමයි. ඒකට ඒ සිටුේෂන්ස් වලට අපිත් මුහුණ දුන්නා. ඉතින් you also engage with your study.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Today we can wind up your today's session. So thank you very much for your joining the class. If there are any things you can ask, I think if there is any question you can ask, and I will share my contact number. And if you have any things, you can inform. And also, please, someone can send me a message in your batch. I don't have any contact, because if there is any delay or any issues in my side when conducting the classes, I can inform immediately. මට මොනවා හරි issues තියෙනවා නම් මට lecture එක පටන් ගන්න යද්දි ඉන්ෆෝම් කරන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද ඔයාලගේ contacts මං ගාව නැහැ. මම contact දාන්න කවුරු හරි මට message එකක් දාලා තියන්න. Please send me a message, anyone, then I can contact if there is any issue in my site. Okay, thank you very much for the joining today, and I expect your participation next day as well. And do the studies and don't wait your time. Don't waste your time. මේවා අදම බලාගන්න පාඩම් කරගන්න. internship training යනවා තමයි. training ගියාට කමන්නේ. ඒවා daily තියෙන වැඩ daily කරගත්තාම ඔයාලට පහසුයි. If not, exam එකේදී තේරම ගොඩ ගහනවා. Okay, thank you very much for the joining class today, and good night.